walk her outside and pull that chair out so you're not...
I can stand, it's okay.
You think so?
I didn't yet the earlier one.
Oh, sorry, I didn't notice.
No, it's
I thought
okay.
you were sitting. Should we put that over here?
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to move the newspapers aside and just sit it right there, that should be fine. That's just audio, and then this one does video and audio.
You could put this back over here and sit down in this if you want.
It's okay, because I have to pay attention to when we run out of tape and things like that, so I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should be good to go.
Ready?
Mhm.
Okay. So today's July 19th, 2012, and we're at the Pioneer Home in Fairbanks. I'm Janice Kozlowski with the National Park Service, and Eileen Deviney is also here with the National Park Service. We're talking with Carl Hefflinger. Mr. Hefflinger, is it okay if we videotape you today?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, great. So could you tell me, did you grow up in Alaska or somewhere else in the United States?
Western Washington. I grew up in Western Washington. Came to Alaska in 1932, so I guess I was 20 years old when I came here.
And what made you come up to Alaska?
Well, we had a depression and started about in 29. They had a stock market crash, and then it developed into an extended depression. The depression lasted until World War II, well, practically all of the 30s, so it was pretty hard to get work in the States.
So were there jobs in Alaska at the time?
Yeah, at the time when I came up here, the Fairbanks Exploration Company was building dredges, and there was the things were pretty good up here.
So you actually came to Fairbanks when you came to Alaska?
No, I spent two or 3 years in Anchorage before I came to Fairbanks.
What kind of work did you do in Anchorage?
I sort of worked for nothing for a while. It was kind of to get my food with a fellow who sold wood, and then I got a job for a couple of months, and I bought a bunch of tools from Sears and Roebuck. And in fact, I spent all the money I made on that 2-month job on the tools. And then, after I got the tools, I bought an old Ford truck, and I had, before I left the States, I had a 1925 Ford Coupe that was in real good condition. And after I got that tools, I called a friend of mine named Harry, and I told him if he'd get me a 4-foot circular saw and an arbor, I'd give him that Ford. And so he took me up on it. And he sent me that, and then I used my tools to build a saw, a circular saw, and I started sawing wood for people in Anchorage. They got the wood in long lengths from the woodcutters, and then they needed somebody to saw it into lengths that they could put in their stove, and so I did pretty good sawing wood. I made pretty good money, and after I got what I thought I was rich enough, I figured I'd go to Fairbanks, get in the mining business. So I even bought a ticket to get to Fairbanks. When I came from Seward to Anchorage, I got on a freight train. And somebody had a nice new sedan and one of the flat cars. And I got in there and sat in that sedan and rode to Anchorage from Seward, just like a king. It was nice and warm and comfortable. So that's the way I got to Anchorage. But I was rich enough by the time I got through sawing wood in Anchorage that I bought a ticket even to go to Fairbanks.
A train ticket?
Yeah. Yeah, I rode in those cars just like everybody else.
Were they fancy trains?
In those days, it took 2 days to get to Fairbanks. We came to Curry and stayed all night at Curry, and then the next day we went on to Fairbanks. That's the way all the trains were scheduled those days.
Did you stay at a hotel in Curry or on the train?
No, in a hotel.
Oh.
They had a regular hotel there for that purpose. I don't know what's there now, but that's what the place was called, Curry. Mm-hmm. Now I guess they go all the way through with trade and don't stop any place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did you find when you arrived in Fairbanks?
Oh, I found a guy who mined, and I worked for him, and he couldn't pay me. He was a good guy, though, and one day he said that there's a claim on 9 below. He said, since I can't pay you, we'll go in half and stake it. So we staked the claim, and I started prospecting on it. I worked all one winter climbing the ladder, and I spruced my dump, and I had $35 for my winter's work. Then I went to work over in Fairbanks Creek and row points and made some more money, and went back and I sunk another hole, and I had some good pay. The FE company was just moving in below me, and they didn't want me. I drift mined one winter there. I was going to go and sink another hole and drift mine, keep on, and they didn't want me there because they were going to mine below me, so they bought me out.
Was that profitable for you?
Well, it was okay. I was able then to buy into a mining company that was mining on the surface with machinery. And I bought into that company, and from then on I kept mining with machinery.
Did you grow up learning about mining, or was this kind of a new endeavor for you?
Oh, I was born in a company town called Durham. Well, it was just like the one that Ernie Ford sings about. The company store and all that. That was the company owned everything.
Yeah. Give your pay to the company store.
Yeah, my dad was a coal miner,
Oh.
and Durham was a coal mine.
So you had an idea what you were doing. you had an idea about mining then. You had grown up around mining operations.
Yeah, that was my only thing I wanted to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and in those days things weren't very good, especially in 1930s. It was hard to quit work. I became a high school dropout, of course. Went to work instead of going to school. There's no money anyway.
It was more important to eat than be educated, right?
Well, it was then anyway.
Yeah.
The schools I went to were inhabited by kids that would start chewing tobacco when they was in the 5th grade, and when they get in the 6th grade, they go to the logging camps and go to work in the logging camps.
Wow, that's awfully young.
Yeah, well, 6th grade education was about the average for the boys.
So did you start working that young also?
I started working when I was 15 in a sawmill.
Mm-hmm.
That was before the Great Depression. We were getting paid $3.60 a day. And after the Depression set in, they were hiring people for 50 cents a day, and that's when I pulled out and came to Alaska.
Mm-hmm. The wages were better in Alaska? There were maybe more jobs and the wages were higher?
There was better conditions. Yeah. Yeah. That was when the mining companies were building their dredges and everything. It was pretty good in Alaska at that time.
Mm-hmm. So did you kept mining for a while, and then what happened? Did you end up, do I understand that you went into military service at some point?
What?
Did you go into the military at one point?
Oh, well, yeah. It was, I enlisted in the Air Force in 52. In 42.
Yeah.
And I spent 3.5 years in service.
What did you do in the military? What was your role?
The first year I was in the military, I worked on Russian Lend-Lease planes.
Out of Fairbanks? Oh.
Yeah, they were delivered here by civilian pilots from Great Falls, Montana, and we gave them an inspection here before the Soviet military picked them up here and flew them over Siberia.
So your job was as like an aircraft mechanic to check the airplane over?
Yeah, mostly that work was laying underneath them, tightening up leaky hoses and stuff.
Did you see some interesting airplanes come through?
Well, we worked on B-25s and P-39s and A-20s. A-20s were light bombers and B-25s were bombers. P-38s were fighter planes. I worked on those at night for 10 months.
Did you see the pilots that brought the planes in, or see the Russian pilots that took them?
Every morning we had to wheel the planes out on the apron, and we each mechanic had two planes that he had energized with a battery card. And the colonel stood up in front of the hangar doors, even in 50 below weather, with his ears sticking out and his colonel's beaked hat on, and he watched the flights take off. The was kind of a hectic situation when we set those flights off. We each had a battery card, and we were assigned a plane to energize, and we'd energize one and then energize the other. And those guys, when we'd energize one, then they'd start the engine, and then somebody would goose the engine pretty good, and they didn't have very good seals for the struts. And now and then in the cold weather, they'd goose those engines, and the struts would break through, and then the nose would go down and take about that much of the end of the props off. That would happen every now and then, and that'd make an awful clatter.
And you probably couldn't talk to the Russian pilots to avoid that.
No, oh no.
So they didn't know better.
No, we didn't talk to them at all. No, they just took those planes and flew them over Siberia.
Did some of them get off the ground and then crash?
Well, every one of them carried a 50-gallon belly tank made out of duct tape and fiber, and we had to take that down every time we went to work on the inner part of the plane. And when we put them back up, there was a tube that stuck up out of the belly tank, and then we had a hole we had to get that tube in, and sometimes the tube would bend and you'd put it up there and you didn't know it. And then when they flew, they'd land in the Bering Sea. Because you couldn't tell whether it was properly installed or not.
Did that happen very often?
No, not very often, but it did happen.
Because that's a long, cold swim.
Yeah, I guess they just went to the bottom.
Yeah.
So they didn't stop on the way, they just flew from Fairbanks to Russia? Did they have a...
Yeah, they had a field at Nome
Okay.
where they could land if in an emergency, and one at Galena. So as far as we was concerned, they had pretty good landings, but I don't know what they did in Siberia.
When the planes came into Fairbanks, were some of them flown in from Great Falls by women pilots?
Yeah, yeah. There was two of our famous women here. I guess one of them might be alive yet. That was Julia Hunter and Evelyn.
Wood?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the two that I know that flew planes up here.
That was a rarity at the time, wasn't it? Seeing women pilots.
Yeah, I guess that was the time of Amelia Earhart and some of those famous pilots. Women always, as far as I know, were always interested in aviation. No reason why they couldn't fly a plane just as well as a man.
I think so too. When the planes came in from Great Falls, you said you had to check them out before they went on. Did you see any particular problems that stood out when they showed up? Did certain airplanes have, common problems with them?
No, not really. They all had Rolls-Royce 12-cylinder engines in them, and they were cooled with coolant. That's before any of us ever had antifreeze, but they were all cooled with antifreeze. Mm-hmm. It was clear ethylene glycol is what they had in the engine, but mostly they didn't have very good. They didn't have very good hoses. There was mostly rubber, and when it got cold, the hoses would get stiff and leak, and then we'd have to tighten them up. After a while, they got neoprene, and the neoprene was down the hole, but the rubber wouldn't. It'd shrink and leak. And that's mostly what we had to do. And that's where we ran into the problem with the 50-gallon reserve tank that we had to take down and put back up again.
Was part of your job to do any kind of winterization of the airplane?
Well, it was winterized as far as the engine was concerned with ethylene glycol, and otherwise, no, as far as I know, there was nothing else done. They had their oil, whatever they wanted to use. It wasn't very good those days, but I just had to keep it warm. When the planes came in, they didn't stay in Fairbanks only about one night. We all worked at nights and got them ready and put them out on the flight apron, and they took them away the next day.
So you saw a lot of planes come through?
Yeah, oh yeah. I don't know, man. I think I had it written in here how many we put through.
Are you're in this book?
Yeah. It's a book called Uncle Sam Wants You. And it's about all of the local boys where I was raised and what they did they got in the service.
Oh, I want to get one of those. Do you think they have them at the bookstore, or do you have to get them in your local hometown? 1999.
I don't. Oh. Well, they're at the Renton Historical Society.
Okay.
So, and the book is by Barbara Nielsen, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know, you can read what it says there.
Okay. Okay, I can track that down.
I don't know if they'd have any more or not. This lady came around and interviewed us all. But I think I have in here how many planes we put over. The American pilots delivered an estimated 7,000 to 7,500 planes directly from the lower 48 factories to the Russians, who had to approve the planes before they were flown to Siberia. It was considered a great honor for a Russian pilot to come to America and fly the planes back to his homeland, and generally things went well. Well, that's about all I got on that.
I imagine it was 7 days a week, people working all the time, taking care of those planes.
Yeah. Well, for quite a while, we were in a war zone. We had to work 7 days a week.
Is this fellow here, is that your brother? Or is any relation?
That's my brother, Harold.
So he worked on the highway while you were in Fairbanks?
He worked on the highway when he was in the Army.
Oh, okay.
And this poor fellow is my brother Arthur.
Oh.
We were all here in Fairbanks when we enlisted, and Arthur paid his way out to the States, so he didn't want to serve here. They made us serve here because we were able, we were used to the cold and was able to adapt to it and help them out. But Arthur paid his way outside, and they sent him to Texas and trained him in Texas. And then they shipped him to the Aleutian Islands.
I bet he wasn't happy about that.
No, the poor guy had to serve there all the rest of the war.
Is that right? What did he do at Umnak?
Hmm?
What did he do at Umnak?
I don't know. He said the wind blew the top off of his mess hall one time while they were eating.
So all three boys served in the World War II?
Yeah.
In Alaska?
Yeah.
Or Canada, maybe?
Yeah. Arthur, of course, against his will.
And they must have moved after the war was over, and you stayed and they left.
No. Arthur stayed here for years, and when he got old, 60 or so, he met up with some Filipino guys, and they got him to marry a 21-year-old virgin.
Oh.
I guess one of their cousins or something. Anyway, the damn fool, he married her, and he got her over from the Philippines, and as soon as she got pregnant, but as soon as she got her citizenship, she dumped him.
Oh.
But the girl that was born, she was a pretty little thing. She stayed more or less with Arthur. Didn't go with her mother. And she turned out good.
So did you say you worked just 10 months on the Lend-Lease program?
Mm-hmm.
And then what did you do?
Oh, yeah, I went to, I got appointed to be a crew chief on an L5 airplane, and it was wrecked over by Blair Lake, and I kept sitting around waiting for her to do something about the airplane, and this was, in fact, I was put in the search and rescue squadron, and we had a guy named Major Regal, called him Whispering Joe, and I was sitting around. I never was very good at sitting around, and I went to Joe and I told him I'd like to get transferred outside. And the next thing I knew, I was in the fuel service business, taking care of fuel trucks that fueled the airplanes, and that's where I had to stay.
Was that here in Fairbanks?
Yeah, when pretty near all of us old timers in Fairbanks had to stay here. Well, they found that ledge sticking up out of a dry creek bed about 20 miles from the mouth of Midas Creek. It isn't called Midas now, it's another name for it. Offhand, I can't remember. Anyway, after the big fight and everything, everybody left there. And this Norwegian went outside, and he was living in Oregon, and he wrote Eddie Mueller a letter and Nolato, and told Eddie about this ledge, and he turned he sent a map and everything showing where this ledge was sticking out of the dry bed, and Mueller turned the thing over to Doc LaRue, and Doc LaRue was known as the Flying Dentist. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And Dr. LaRue is a drunkard, so he never got anything done with it, and he turned the maps and everything over to Guy Rivers. And Guy got a hold of me, and he wanted to go up there and find it. So we tried, it was sort of a jinx. We tried 2 or 3 times, and every time we'd fly to Galena, and then from Galena we'd had to hire a smaller plane to go over there, and we'd be in a snowstorm or something. But anyway, finally, Guy was flying an Apache, 2-engine Apache, and we flew into Galena. They had a pretty good airport there, and then Guy got Willie Foster to fly over from Nome, and he had a Super Cub, and he hauled me in there, and we flew around the swastiks until we could find a place to land, and we landed, and then we made an airport by tearing down these little swap holes that they were all rotten, and we tore a bunch of those down, and then Willie went back and got Guy, and it was raining sideways and pouring.
What are we doing here?
Anyway, we tried to find that ledge, and we couldn't find it. So it's still there waiting for you.
Nobody ever did.
No.
Oh, come on, Eileen, let's go.
In the truck.
Yeah, I can give you the map. Yeah, it's supposed to be sticking up right out of the dry gulch, but we couldn't find anything. We only tried once. Gets to be kind of a precarious operation to land in no landing field.
Yeah, dangerous. Sounds
So
like
we always call that the Lost Norwegian. I never could talk anybody else to go in there.
Do you think it is really somewhere? They weren't making it up?
Yeah, I think to start with, I think the Norwegian found it all right.
Mm.
He wrote from the States, and he sent a map and everything. I've got the map and everything here.
Mm.
It sounds like you met some interesting characters since you've lived up here. Can you think of any others other people that made an impression on you?
Made an impression on me. I just can't answer that. I don't know.
Did you have any partners, or did you work the claims yourself fairly independently?
Well, we were partnership with Fisher Grain Company, and then later on I had my boys, and I didn't need anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good friend who took care of me and found all the ground for me.
Oh.
Was Chuck Herbert.
Oh, he's the one you met early on, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. He wasn't in the service with you, though.
No.
You met him after?
I knew him before the war and after. Chuck was in the Seabees. He was a real well-known engineer. He was a mining engineer. He was married to Sally, and they got a divorce. And Sally married Martin of the Reed and Martin Corporation. They built the Northward Building.
Oh.
And then Martin moved to Hawaii and built high-rises there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was Chuck ever up towards Wiseman? Did he work up that way at all?
Who?
Chuck Norbert, did he work up further north from Livingood, like up near Wiseman?
Chuck Herbert?
Yeah, Herbert.
He was an engineer, and he was a partner in Jack Wade.
Okay.
Jack Wade proposition for years. They made a lot of money there, Jack Wade.
Dredge mining?
No, they were open cutting.
Oh, they were.
That was Smitty and Elgin and Parker and Herbert.
Mm.
They mined there. That was pretty rich ground.
Mm-hmm.
They were the first miners who mined with equipment. Before that, it was all hand mining. They found a lot of gold there.
Mm.
Chuck was a mine engineer, and he dealt in hard rock too.
Mm.
He staked the Partner Hill group in Bornite.
Oh. Out off the Kobuk?
Uh-huh. Yeah, he ran all around the country. He was in the prospecting up there where Conoco has the zinc,
At
big
Red
zinc
Dog?
mine. He was looking at that.
Mm.
One time when the plane wrecked and his son pulled him out of the plane unconscious.
Oh.
Geez.
He did quite a bit of quite a few things.
Hmm.
I don't know if you fellas. I guess you never heard of him, did you?
No, I haven't. Had you?
No, I was thinking of someone else's name, so that's why I'd asked. But yeah, Bornite they're working on that now.
Yeah, they're back there again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was deep, and well, Chuck, I made $6,000 out of that deal because he took us all in as partners.
Oh.
And he sold the ground to Kennecott and give us all our shares.
Is Chuck still around?
I'm trying to. I think he died. that escapes me. I probably will remember that tomorrow or next day. I think he has passed away. He was older than me.
Mm.
I think he was born in 1908 or 9.
Well, we've kept you for more than an hour now, so I think we'll close the interview. I wanted to thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk with you today. It's been a real pleasure to hear your stories, and
Maybe you could take a whack at the lost Norwegian.
Yeah. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
take
we're-
a picture of the raft.
yeah, where's the map? Let's take a picture.
Runs through there, and on the other side of the Dane Hills is Hog River.
Oh, yeah.
And when we were looking for that vein, the Hog River people would all going all along those hills,
Following behind.
look at the hard rock. We stirred them up.
They figured if you're putting that much effort into it,
There must be something.
must be something good there.
Yeah, well, they went up there and were taking soil samples and things to see if there was mineralization on the ridge, which was what they should have been doing, yeah. Because if there was supposed to be a ledge down there, there might have been mineralization.
Mm-hmm.